Hi, welcome to Create-a-thon. I'm so glad that you could be here to join us. My name is Judith Fenlon. Today I am going to be doing a watercolor tutorial. We're going to do some florals. And what I like to do with them is make a border of florals. This is a very abstract and simple way to draw some watercolor florals. I love create and I love to use art to just be present, to take a break from my animals, my children, my husband. Everybody kind of leaves me alone when I sit down to create something. If I think if it's any good, I enjoy giving it to people, just to put a little smile, let somebody know you're thinking of them. So art does definitely play a very important role in my continuing mental health. And especially in these times of isolation, I have found it to be really centering and really nourishing to my soul when I'm able to create that space. And it does feel like I'm doing something for myself, which probably for most of us, we don't do too much of. So I'm gonna walk you through very, very basic supplies. I'm gonna show you what our end product is going to look like. So we are going to work on a couple different florals, and we're gonna create something like this. The flowers are, as I said, fairly abstract. Sometimes I'll look at a picture, sometimes I'll just make something up. What I love about watercolors is I find that they're very forgiving and almost everything you do is pretty. So if it blends and you didn't mean for it to blend, I find it usually comes out pretty nice. So what you're going to need today, and bear with me, I hope that everybody can see. I have a very, basic set of watercolors right here. I'm going to use mostly a round watercolor brush. This one is a size 6. So something that's like a medium size. You want to have that nice point on the end, if you can, to do some of the finer work. That's my dog. You'll have to excuse him. And then you want to have something small for details. So you can do, I have a 0 here, I have a 3, anything, just a smaller brush there. I've got my water, right? And I've got a paper towel just to dry off your brush when you don't want quite as much water on it. And of course, I've got a piece of watercolor paper. So it's very simple. Okay, so how I like to start, I'm gonna show you again. Here's our final project. What I usually like to do is in the middle, pick a nice quote that means something to me, write it in there, and it frames it really beautifully. And it's nice. And you can do whatever you want with florals. But I really like to do this little frame of florals. So what I'm going to start with is this. This is a peonies, a very abstract peonies. And I usually like to put something larger in the corners. So we're going to start with our peonies. We're going to take our thin brush, or skinnier brush. This, again, is a 0, but just something small. I'm going to start with the middle of the peonies. So I'm going to make I have this like yellow over here. I'm going to add a little bit of brown to it. So you just want kind of a nice, natural, yellowy brown where you could see might be the center of a flower. Okay. So I've got I'm going to bring it a little bit closer to try to show you guys. I've got a nice yellowy brown here. Okay, so I'm gonna start up in this corner, and I'm going to start just making the center of the peonies over here. Just nice and simple. just like that. And you can always come back in if you want to make a little more definition on it. But nice and simple, super abstract. So now I'm gonna take this one is a number 6, just some sort of medium sized. And I'll make like a pinkish purplish peonies. So I see I've got some purple up here. I'm gonna add some water to it. And I'm gonna take some of this. This is a pretty bright pink. I'm gonna mix it. Add a little bit more purple. You obviously can make whatever color that you want. I'm gonna add a little bit more of my pink till I get the color kind of that I'm looking for. So now I've got like a pinkish purplish. So we're gonna start by making kind of a large petal here. So here's your first petal. And the way peonies work is that if you leave some white space, you actually start to create the definition of the multiple layers, because a peonies is a flower that has lots and lots of petals. So that's my big main leaf. You do it kind of right in the front. And now I'm gonna visualize the peonies being wrapped around this centerpiece. So here I'm gonna come and make another petal, but it's not nearly as wide because we're not seeing it from the front. So there you go, there's a nice another petal. I'll do something similar on the other side. And if you see right now, I'm using the tip of my brush to have a little bit more control and some more definition over my petals. Okay, so we've got a couple petals now. I'm gonna come up around. We're sort of gonna do like a squiggly line here. This is gonna be another petal, right? Let's do another kind of squiggly. There we go. And then you're just gonna keep building your petals, but you're gonna make sure that you have some nice white space so that it gives the illusion of definition. And again, you know, you can't really go wrong. We're just making some abstract flowers. So now that I have my basic structure of my peonies, I'm just gonna come in with a little bit of a darker pink and use it just on the tips of my petals here. So I'm just gonna come in the tips with like a kind of a hot pink here. And it just gives the petals a little bit of a more realistic look. Okay, so we'll come revisit that peonies again. We'll take a look at it and see if it needs anything after the fact. Okay, now we're gonna go into some very, very simple tulips. I really like these a lot. They're really, really easy. I'm gonna make an orange tulip, kind of a reddish orangish. So I'm just kind of mixing my red orange over here. I'm gonna make it a little orangey. Okay. So we're gonna the tulip is very simple. You are going to start with, it's just 2 petals, okay? We're gonna curve them. And then we're gonna come in here, do our second petal. And that's essentially your tulip. We're gonna come right around here to make it look like there's another petal in the back. And now while it's still wet, I'm going to take a little bit of a darker orange red and just blend it a little bit. Just makes it look really pretty. And I will do another tulip, and that's our tulip. I'll come down and I'll make a stem in a minute, but that's essentially it. Come attach it down here. Okay, I'm gonna, let's see, I will make a purple tulip. And I tend to make the leaves of this tulip fairly watery. We'll come in again and just do our 2 petals. Super duper simple. And then while it's still wet, I'm gonna just get a little bit of a darker purple, more concentrated, less water, and just blend it up. Okay. And we'll come back and draw the stem when that is dry. Okay, we're gonna do some just little purple lilacs. We're gonna start with a very light purple as our base. So I've got some light purple here. And I'm just gonna go ahead and make these little purple flowers. It's very, if you can see, mine is really watery right now. But that's because I'm gonna come back with some darker purple and make some more definition. Okay, now I'm gonna come back with my darker purple, so I'm not gonna use a lot of water. And I'm just gonna touch the bottoms of my flowers. To give it some dark purple. Again, we're gonna let that dry and we'll come back and we'll do some stems. This is one, I like this little, do a little yellow flower. So I'm gonna again get my thin brush. We're gonna start with the center. So I'm just gonna do a brown center to my flower, but nice and thin. Okay. Right? I'm gonna do a couple of them all together. Okay. So I'm gonna start with some yellow as my base. And just make some really nice, gentle petals. Trying not to touch the center because we don't want it to all spread together. But then again, if it does, it's still okay. Yep, see, I just spread it, if you guys can see that. But I promise you it's still gonna look pretty good. Another flower here. Okay, so it's kind of a mishmash, you know, it's not super defined, but that's okay. So now what I like is to put a little bit of this kind of, what I have on my set is it's like a pinkish maroon color. Almost like a little bit magenta, a little bit maroon. If you guys can, if you can see that right here. Now I'm just gonna come on these little petals, these little, and I'm just gonna, again, just give a dot. Kind of like, hope for the best. See how it dries? Right? These petals are in kind of different stages of drying, so they're gonna come out a little bit different. Okay. So we've got, our flowers have dried over here, so I'm gonna come back, take my very thin number 0 paintbrush. I'm gonna get, just gonna sort of go, actually, I'm sorry, I'm gonna get, just pick kind of any green that you want, one that you think looks kind of realistic. I usually just, I'll dip right in the color because I want it to be very fine. And for our little lilacs, we're gonna come in and we're just gonna draw that stem right there. Very, very fine lines. And we'll come over to our peonies. You don't have to draw leaves. You can leave your peonies just like that. It looks great, or you can just do a really simple leaf. So I've got this nice kind of like olivey green that I think looks natural. I might mix a little bit of brown into it. To just try to make it look like a natural color you'd find in nature. And leaves, I'm gonna draw, just kind of try to draw a little stem. And then a leaf is a really basic shape. You take the tip of your watercolor brush and do the outline. And then you're gonna just kind of fill it in. And that's a really very, very basic leaf shape. Come up here, do another one. And then we'll come back when that dries and we'll do a little bit of shading. And I'll do my tulip stems. And tulips have kind of a thick stem and a long leaf to them. So we'll come here and then our leaf kind of comes up like that. And we'll make we'll make some more little flowers to kind of go in between. Come over here and I'll do some stems on these little yellow flowers so you can see what that looks like. Again, I'm gonna use not a lot of water because I want it to be defined. I want you to be able to see these super delicate little stems. Very simple. And if you want, you can put a couple very dainty little leaves on them. Very sweet. We'll do a very abstract and simple rose. So we're gonna start with a bit of a darker color. So we're gonna do sort of a hot pink rose. So we'll do our rose over here. We're gonna start with the center. We're just gonna make the center of the rose, try to make it defined, right? So here we're mimicking the way that roses have that really tightly wrapped petals. So that's the center of our rose. And now we're gonna take a much more watered down pink. It can be the same pink, just water it down a lot. And we're just gonna kind of push out, and then you blend. Right, don't make it perfect. And that's essentially our rose. I'm just gonna blend the center just a little bit so that it's just not perfect, but that is pretty much our rose. So I'll go ahead, I'll do another. What other colors do roses come in? Anything. I'll do a nice red one. Right, so I'm using the tip of my medium-sized brush. Again, very abstract, so it's hard to just really mess it up here. There we go. There's our other rose. We'll come in and we'll do some more little flowers. So we've got our roses, our tulips, our peonies, our little lilacs, and I don't know what, just little sweet flowers over there. So we'll do some more like little sweet purple flowers. So again, I'm gonna do the center. I'm gonna start with a brown, but I'm gonna make it a bit more of a yellowish brown. And here I'm gonna try to do a little bit of like a different angle that you're looking at the flower. And I'll show you what I mean. So I'm gonna make these like a real sweet purple flower. I'm gonna go to my skinnier brush right now because this one I'm gonna try to be a little more precise. So we're gonna paint a flower from a different perspective, that you're looking at it, but the flower is kind of drooping down. So this little guy here, right? We're gonna draw the petals so that they are just coming right off of the center. and you're not looking at it straight on. Okay. So we'll come back over there and we will make our stems. We're gonna make, now we're gonna add a couple little sweet berries, right? Kind of one of those branches where you've got some red berries. So here I've got my medium-sized brush again. I'm gonna make red berries. Just come over and do some very simple circles. Super duper easy. Let's see, we'll do one more. Okay. Now I'm going to come back and do a more concentrated color. So you want to take red with not too much water and just, again, dot it, and you'll see what happens when it dries. Usually gives a nice definition. All right, and we will revisit those berries in a moment when they dry a little bit more. Just trying to make them a little more round. Okay, I'm gonna come over to this corner here because I'm gonna make a big sunflower. I love sunflowers. And sunflowers come in all sorts of colors, not just the yellow brown variety. So I'm gonna come up to this corner because I think it's gonna be easier to see. So we're gonna start with, sunflowers have very large centers. So we're just gonna come with some brown. And we're gonna come back and we're gonna give that center more definition, but for now you're just doing a very light brown. And now I'm gonna start on the petals. I am gonna start with a yellow petal, but then I'm gonna come back in and give it some other colors too. And sunflowers have kind of long, thin petals. And also the thing about sunflowers is you're gonna make this kind of initial loop of petals, and then we're gonna come and fill it back in. Okay, so I'm gonna take a little orange now. Because we're just gonna start building some color on our petals. I'm just kind of very loosely putting orange on these petals. we're gonna let that dry a little bit, and then we'll come back in with some of our other petals that we're putting behind. The brown has dried now, so I'm gonna come in with some more brown, but with lots less water, and just kind of dot it around. You know, if you think about that center of a sunflower, it's got like a million of these little dots. I know I don't really sound very specific. Even though I do like to garden, I don't really know what anything is called. Something like that. Again, the nice thing is you don't have to be too rigid about it. So I'm going to come back in with some more of our yellow, and I'm going to start filling in some of these areas. And these are the petals behind this first row of petals. So you're going to just start to fill in your sunflower. Sunflowers have lots and lots of petals. I'm gonna go ahead and take my my 0 here. I'm gonna come back in with, I had a sunflower in my garden a couple years ago that had this really beautiful like purple to it. So kind of experimented with putting some of this this color that I like. It's like a magenta. And it's also nice because you can kind of define some of these petals a little bit more if you want to take a darker color. And that's what's so nice about these really fine brushes, is you can do that detail work. So something like that. You can always come back to your sunflower once it's dried, and you can do some more definition of the petals. But I like to do, you know, a big sunflower in the corner. It takes up space. So the other thing, so we'll come back to our berries over here. Our berries are dry. I'm gonna give them a little bit more definition, so I'm gonna take a little bit more of my red, and I'm just gonna give them a little bit of a dark red around the edges. And actually what I like to do also is now I like to take a little bit of the white watercolor, which I don't use very often, and just give the berries a little bit of white too. So these are berries, and they're more on a branch. So we're gonna do them on a brown branch. But again, I want to do my very fine brush to do these very fine branches. Right, let's connect them. They're all part of one branch. And they're really sweet. And I'll make teeny little leaves. Just like really, really little. And you got a really sweet little berry branch. So you can essentially work your way around. You can always add a little bit of just greenery to take up some space. So there's a nice, just like a really delicate stem. And I'll just kind of make a really sweet little piece of grass, wheat. Again, just with my very fine brush, right? If you just want to fill up some space around. We'll come back over to this peonies leaf. I'm going to take some darker green and make some definition in my leaves. Again, it's all about the fine, having the fine brush. I'll show you guys too how to do a quick, another little piece of foliage. So here I've just got a fine brown branch. I'm going to take my thicker brush. I'm going to start with a really, a pretty light green. And I'm just going to kind of build that out. And we're going to come back in with a darker green after. So you just work your way around, repeating flowers, doing little, you can do these sweet little flowers in any color that you want. And when things are dry, you come back and make cute little delicate stems. And then you can always add definition to them. So if you wanted to come in and take a darker purple or any color that's more of a pink purple, and just to make your leaves, your petals look a little more realistic. And those are some very basic watercolor florals. And you'll continue to work yourself around. You can certainly repeat all of these flowers over and over again. I've got, here on this completed one, I have a couple different sunflowers on there. You know, the peonies are really pretty. You can keep repeating those. And again, make these little flowers in any color that you want. So thank you so much for joining me. This is my work in progress as I'm working myself around. And thank you for supporting Create. I'm Judith, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this quick, easy tutorial. Bye-bye.